How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing good. Welcome to this video, which is going to be a follow-on from the last episode of the Draw Talk, where we looked at how you can construct the human head from a front view and a side view. Now in this video we're going to be taking that further and looking at how you can construct it from all these different angles. It's still the same technique, except it's applied in a different way, and it's a little more advanced, but we're still using the same methods from Andrew Loomis, and hopefully throughout this video I'll be able to explain the process and you'll understand it and you'll be able to improve your artwork, because once you can construct the human head from all these different angles, it's incredibly useful. So grab a pencil and some paper and then you can follow along with this. Okay, so I'm going to start off by first of all creating the construction for the head on near enough a 3/4 view, and I'll be able to walk you through the whole process. I think this is the best place to start for a good first example, and then we will start rotating it from different angles afterwards. So like usual, we start off with a circle, and then similar to the front view we did in the last video, we found the middle line, except this time it isn't just going to be directly down the centre. This line we are creating, that I'll refer to as the vertical line, basically represents the middle of the face, where we can mark on the features. Because I've placed this line here, about 3/4 in, we can imagine that the face would be looking in a similar direction. Now we also have to imagine that this circle is a sphere or a ball, and so we wrap the middle line around this ball, and to give you a better idea, you can imagine that this line would continue all the way around, like I've indicated here. So now we have that, we create the horizontal line, which is the brow line. Obviously this is where the eyebrows would sit. And also with this technique, it's really easy to change the placements of these lines depending on the direction and the angle of the head you are trying to achieve, but I'll talk more about that later. Just try and understand that these lines cross at the centre of where the face would be, and then wrap the lines around this 3-dimensional sphere. I'd recommend practicing just drawing spheres and then drawing lines around them in different directions so you can get the hang of this. So because of these construction lines, we start to get an idea of where we would place the facial features and also the direction that the head is facing. We know from the last video that the head isn't just a ball and that we actually need to slice off either side so that we have a side plane. The side plane is the side of the head, if anyone's wondering, because obviously once you slice some sections off this ball, it gives a more realistic look of the cranium of the head. So with this drawing as an example, we have the construction lines marked on the left side, and we have to imagine that the head would be facing in that direction, and then so naturally, because of that, the side plane would be around here. So doing exactly what we did in the first video, we will slice a section off in relation to them construction lines. It might be confusing at first to try and create this side plane and figure out how it would appear, but remember that it's usually about 2/3 of the height of the sphere, and later on in this video you should be able to get a better understanding when I create more examples. So section the side plane into quarters, and once we have that, it's a step closer to looking more like the human head. Around the same level as the bottom of the side plane, we would have the base of the nose, so from that point bring that line round, keeping in form with the sphere, and mark it on. The next thing we need to understand is that from the centre of the cross, at the middle vertical line, we bring this straight down, keeping it in accordance with the side plane and other verticals, and we can bring this down to that nose marking. Now what this gives us is a clear distance from the brow line to the base of the nose, and we can duplicate this same distance upwards to show the hairline and then mark that on. Then we also duplicate the same distance once again, but this time below the nose marking, and this will naturally be off of the ball and will give us the base of the chin. So essentially all we have done here is created sections with the same distance, which tells us where to place the facial features. We have pretty much done the hardest part of this construction, and then the next step is to connect and bring the lines from the chin to the bottom of the side plane, and that will give us the jaw. So remember when we created a side view and the jawline met the side plane around the middle line at the bottom? That's exactly what we are doing here. And finally, this is looking like the head. So from this point we can easily see where the facial features would go, and I'll give you an example of that before we move on. I'd recommend watching the front view video if you haven't already, because that talks more about the placement of features more in depth. So let me quickly walk you through this. Now to begin, I'm going to start by separating the bottom third also into thirds, and then the first mark would indicate where the mouth would go. Moving up to this middle section, we mark the halfway point, and then we also mark the halfway point again on that top section, which gives us the eye line. The ear sits in the bottom right quarter of the side plane and is the same height as the brow line to the base of the nose. So what I'm going to do now is quite complicated and is more related to anatomy, and I'll explain this more in depth in a later video, but just to give you an example, I'm really working in the construction lines to form the more realistic shape of the head in regards to the facial features. So for instance, from this angle we would see more of the shape of the face, including the eye sockets and how they seem to almost push back into the head, how the forehead slants backwards towards the hairline, how the cheeks and mouth extrude outwards slightly. The more you study and draw the head, the easier you'll pick up on these small details. To actually start off drawing in the facial features, like we did in the front view video, I start off with the section on the centre of the brow line, and this is also known as the keystone, and from this point we can construct the nose and the distance between the eyebrows. I keep referring to the last video, but seeing how the facial features are drawn and placed from a front view will give you a much better understanding when it comes to creating them on an angle. So I'm just quickly going to draw in the facial features to give you an idea of the placements. Even though in this video we are focusing on the construction for various angles, if you still have an idea of where things will go, then that will be helpful. I'm going to dedicate a video to each of these features. It might be worth noting that when it comes to drawing the hair, remember that it sits above the overall sphere. But other than that, we are finally finished with this first example. Okay, now let's move forward and start constructing the head from different angles. I'm going to do quite a few of these so you can get an understanding of how it works. I'm also not going to narrate every single one of them because I'd just be repeating myself, but just try and study the process and then it's applied to pretty much all of them. We always start by creating a circle, but think of it as a three-dimensional sphere. Then we draw the middle line in regards to the direction and the angle of the head. Then create the horizontal line, which is the brow line and indicates the position of the eyebrows. Make sure these wrap around in form with the sphere. The next step is to slice off a section either side to create the side plane. Depending on the angle of the head, sometimes you don't see both of these side planes. We can then use the side plane to assist in locating the base of the nose. And so after that we drop that middle line directly down to the nose, and then from duplicating that same distance from the brow line to the nose, we can find the chin and also the mark for the hairline. Finish by joining the chin to the halfway point of the side plane, and then you have pretty much constructed the head. So from now on I'm just following that same process on different angles to construct the head. I'll leave this in time lapse and you can watch this play out, and then I'll jump back into this when we get to some more complicated angles. Okay, so with this one I've placed the brow line a lot higher, and so it gives the impression we are looking up underneath the head. It's still the same process except the side plane might be hard to create, but just try and imagine this ball being three-dimensional. And so because we are looking up underneath it, we will naturally see the underneath of the chin. I've drawn that in and it also connects to the side plane. Okay, we're nearly at the end of this. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But on this last one, I've done a forward view, but looking up from below. So again, we slice off the side planes and also see the underneath of the chin. So that's a few examples of how to construct the head on different angles, and from this point you can then build on top of this with the facial features, which I'll be covering in later videos. Also, this was a technique from Andrew Loomis, and so I really recommend his drawing books. So there we go, that was how to construct the head on all these different angles, and in the next videos we're going to be looking at individual facial features, and I'm going to take a realistic drawing approach with them, and then eventually we'll look at how you can apply each one of them onto this basic construction so that we get a full rendered face. So I'm looking forward to creating more of these tutorials. I hope you're enjoying them. I'm going to be doing a lot of cool videos in between all these as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.